The sun was just beginning to rise over the dusty Nevada horizon as Caleb Turner's pickup truck rumbled to a stop in front of the decrepit gas station. The wind howled like a warning as it passed through rusted signs, shattered windows, and dried tumbleweeds. Caleb turned off the ignition, and silence fell heavy around him. He rested his calloused hands on the steering wheel for a moment and stared at the gas station with a slow, tired breath. It looked even worse in daylight. This was the place everyone warned him not to take, but to him, it was a lifeline. In the passenger seat, his daughter Maya stirred under a threadbare blanket, her small head resting against a stuffed rabbit with one eye. She was 10 but far too thin for her age. Her soft, curly hair was tangled, and her cheeks were hollow. She had barely spoken a word since they left Phoenix 2 days earlier. Life had been hard. His wife had passed away 3 years ago in a car accident, and everything afterward unraveled. His job, his house, and eventually his sense of direction. But here, in the middle of nowhere, someone had finally given him a chance, a job, a place to stay. The gas station, Hunter's Pump and Go, was long closed. Its doors were boarded up, the roof sagging, and one of the pumps lay sideways as though knocked over by a storm. An old man named Clyde, the property owner, had hired Caleb to keep watch, maybe restore it if he could. No one believed it was worth saving. But Clyde said he saw something in Caleb that reminded him of himself years ago. A man too stubborn to quit and too desperate to care. Caleb stepped out of the truck, stretching his sore limbs. The air smelled like hot sand and old rubber. A few buzzards circled in the distance. He took a long look at the station and then walked over to Maya's side to gently wake her. "Sweetheart," he said softly, "we're here." Maya blinked at him, confused, then glanced at the gas station. "This is it?" "Yeah," Caleb said with a weak smile. "It's not much now, but it's ours, for now." She didn't respond, only clutched her rabbit tighter and slid out of the truck. Inside, the station was worse. The floor was caked in grime. Shelves were either broken or stripped bare. The air was musty and thick with the scent of mildew and old gasoline. Caleb opened a few doors and peeked behind the counters. There were rats in the pantry and spiderwebs so thick in the back office they looked like drapes. Still, he wasn't discouraged. He'd worked in worse places. He pulled out the duffel bag they shared, laid out a sleeping bag for Maya in the cleanest corner he could find, and began sweeping. It took 2 hours to make a dent, but when he stood back, panting and drenched in sweat, the counter was visible again, and the back office at least looked livable. He walked out to the roadside to put up a sign. It was hand-painted on a piece of plywood, "Under restoration, food coming soon." He'd scraped together the last of his savings to buy some canned goods and hoped to fix up the tiny kitchenette inside the station. As the day wore on, a few townsfolk passed by, mostly in old trucks or dusty sedans. One man rolled down his window and laughed. "You trying to raise the dead, or just setting up for Halloween early?" Another chuckled from his passenger seat. "That dump's been cursed since the 90s, buddy. You're wasting your time." Caleb nodded politely but said nothing. He was used to people talking. Used to being underestimated. He walked back inside, closed the door behind him, and got back to work. That night, with Maya curled up beside him under a pile of old flannel shirts, Caleb sat on the station's roof and looked up at the stars. The desert sky was clear and endless, a velvet dome pinpricked with constellations. For a moment, he felt peace. He didn't hear the first noise, barely more than a shuffle behind the back wall. But when it came again, he sat up alert. A soft thump, then a scrape, then silence. Caleb climbed down carefully, picked up a wrench from the workbench, and followed the noise. He walked past the broken freezer and into the back storage room. The sound came again, faint but unmistakable. He nudged aside a metal shelf that leaned suspiciously against the wall. Behind it, to his surprise, was a door. Not just a door, an old maintenance hatch with a rusted lock that had been broken clean off. He slowly pulled it open and pointed his flashlight inside. Nothing at first, just dust, scattered rags, and a cracked concrete floor. But then he saw it, a flash of motion. A small figure darting behind a stack of crates. Caleb froze. "Hey," he said cautiously. "Who's there?" No response. He moved closer. "I'm not gonna hurt you. Come on out." For a moment, silence. Then slowly, from the shadows, a face emerged. A boy, maybe 12 or 13, thin with sharp eyes and a ragged hoodie. He stared at Caleb with a mix of fear and defiance. "Who are you?" the boy asked. "I'm Caleb. Just started working here. What about you?" The boy looked past him, as if considering escape, then said, "Don't tell anyone we're here." "What?" The boy didn't answer. Instead, he backed into the darkness and whistled softly. One by one, 5 more children stepped into view. There were 6 of them in total, 3 boys, 3 girls. Ranging from maybe 6 years old to 16, they looked dirty, hungry, and wary. But they were real, not ghosts, not figments. Caleb stood there, stunned. "How long have you all been here?" The eldest girl, maybe 15, her eyes sharp as razors, answered, "Long enough." "Are you from around here?" "No," she said firmly. "No one is." The youngest child, a boy of about 6, held a ratty teddy bear and clung to the girl's side. He didn't speak. He only stared up at Caleb with wide, hollow eyes. Caleb slowly lowered the wrench and said gently, "You hungry?" Their silence said everything. By morning, the kids had eaten everything he had. A dozen cans of beans, some crackers, a jar of peanut butter, and all the clean water. Caleb didn't scold them. He just watched, amazed at how quickly they devoured everything. Then he went outside to his truck and drove 10 miles into town to buy more supplies. When he got back, a woman named Trina, the owner of the local diner, saw him unload extra groceries. "Feeding an army," she joked. He smiled. Something like that. Word spread fast in small towns. Within a day, rumors began. Caleb was hiding runaways. He was harboring delinquents. Maybe even part of a gang. When Sheriff Dunley showed up 2 days later, hat in hand and suspicion in his voice, Caleb met him at the door. "Something going on here, Caleb." "Just cleaning up, trying to make this place work." "You living here with your daughter?" "Wes." "Anyone else?" Caleb didn't hesitate. "Nope." The sheriff looked at him long and hard. "You sure?" "Dead sure." Dunley tipped his hat and left. But Caleb knew eyes were now on him. That night, the kids were quieter. Caleb brought them fresh blankets, water, and a bag of fast food he'd snuck in under his coat. "Why are you helping us?" the older girl asked. "Because no one else is." She studied him. "People think we're trash. People say a lot of dumb things. Doesn't make them true." The boy with the hoodie, the one who first appeared, finally said, "We weren't always like this. We were part of something big, but then something went wrong." "What happened?" "People disappeared. The people who made this place, they vanished." Caleb frowned. "Made this place? What do you mean?" The boy pointed to the ground. "There's more underneath. Under this station. It's not just storage. It used to be something else." Caleb was intrigued. "How do you know?" "We used to live down there." In the coming days, Caleb did 2 things. Fixed up the front of the station to keep up appearances, and explored the hidden corners when Maya was asleep. He found hidden vents, rusted pipes leading downward, strange metal doors welded shut, files torn apart. But the kids were right. This place wasn't just a gas station. One afternoon, the youngest child, Nico, the quiet boy with the teddy bear, took Caleb's hand and led him to the mop closet. Nico pulled back a tile and revealed a trapdoor beneath. It opened to a steep, narrow staircase that vanished into darkness. "What is this?" Caleb asked. But Nico just smiled faintly for the first time and whispered, "Where it all began." End of chapter 1. The trapdoor groaned as Caleb pushed it open further, the hinges stiff from years of disuse. A chill rose from the staircase below, not the kind brought by weather, but by abandonment. Caleb held a flashlight in one hand, Nico's small hand in the other. The boy's eyes sparkled with a strange mixture of sadness and hope, as if the dark below was both a memory and a promise. They descended the staircase slowly. Concrete walls lined the passage, with rusted pipes and tangled wires crisscrossing overhead. The air was thick and stale. Caleb could smell age, mildew, and something faintly metallic. The deeper they went, the more certain he became that this This place the town had deemed worthless was hiding something monumental. At the base of the staircase was a steel door, scorched and scratched, with a handprint scanner mounted beside it. The scanner's lights were dead, and it had clearly not been functional in years. But to Caleb's surprise, there was a gap wide enough to slip through, where the frame had warped. Someone had forced their way inside once, long ago. He squeezed through, Nico right behind him, and entered what looked like a subterranean bunker. The space was enormous, larger than the station above. Corridors split off in every direction. Some led to small rooms with glass walls and overturned desks, others to storage closets with broken crates and strange cylindrical canisters. One section looked like a laboratory. Another resembled a surveillance room, with rows of dusty monitors and panels. Caleb turned to Nico. "You used to live here." The boy nodded. Woodall did. He took Caleb's hand and led him through the warren of forgotten chambers. Dust clung to every surface. The lights above occasionally flickered, clearly running off a dying power source. There were murals drawn on the walls, likely by the children during their time here. Crude stick figures, stars, a rocket ship, a man in a white coat with DRAO scrawled underneath. Caleb saw names written in childish handwriting. Ellie, Rico, Lena, Sagel, Tommy. A long hallway led to a sealed glass room filled with bunk beds and books. Nico stopped in front of it, placed his hand on the glass, and whispered, "This was our dorm." Caleb knelt beside him. "Why did you all stay here?" Nico looked up at him, eyes haunted. "Because we couldn't go anywhere else." Back upstairs, Caleb sat the children down around a makeshift table made from stacked crates. He handed out sandwiches and granola bars he'd picked up from a nearby town. They ate with quiet gratitude. It wasn't until everyone had finished that Caleb decided to press further. "I saw the place downstairs," he said softly. "What was it? Who ran it?" "The older girl?" Lena, who was now clearly the de facto leader among the six, narrowed her eyes. "We weren't supposed to tell anyone." "Why?" "Because we were part of something classified. At least, that's what Dr. Harrow always said." Caleb leaned forward. "Who's Dr. Harrow?" "It was the one who looked after us, ran the programs, did the tests." "What kind of tests?" Lena looked at the others, at Ellie, who had begun nervously tapping her fingers in a rhythmic pattern on the crate, at Rico, who pulled out a crumpled paper filled with maps and scribbles, at Sammy, who was already fiddling with a torn walkie-talkie and small circuit board in the corner, then at Tommy, who sat silently with wide, anxious eyes. He used to say we were special, that we had gifts other kids didn't. "Like what?" Rico piped up. "I can read topographical maps, from memory. Any map, even upside down." Caleb blinked. "You learned that here." "I didn't learn it," Rico said. "It just is," Illy said. "I hear patterns. In everything. Like radio waves, engines, footsteps. I can tell you what kind of car someone drives by the sound of the tire on gravel. I used to help decode signals." "And you?" Caleb asked Lena. She took a long breath. "I fix things. Electronics. Even ones I've never seen before. I can feel how they work. That's what Dr. Harrow said. A spatial mechanic. I used to think it meant I was broken." Sammy spoke without looking up. "They brought us here for testing. We weren't born here. We were taken from different places. We think our parents were told we died, or we disappeared." Caleb sat back, the gravity of their words sinking in. "How did you end up alone?" 3 years ago. Lena began. The station went into lockdown. There were alarms, people in suits, yelling. Then it was just empty. Everyone left. Except us. Dr. Harrow told us to hide in the vents, said he'd come back, but he never did. And no one came looking for you. No one even knew we existed. The next morning, Caleb rose early and drove into town. He visited the public library, then the county records office. He asked about Hunter's Pump and Go, but the records only went back 30 years. Before that, it was listed as a military-owned site, then abruptly marked decommissioned, classified. When he pressed the clerk, she shrugged. That stretch of land's got weird history. Some say it was a nuclear test site. Others say it was a bunker, but it's just desert now. He returned to the gas station and sat outside, watching the sun dip low. The wind carried dust along the cracked pavement. Inside, Maya was helping Ellie organize canned food. The kids had begun warming up to Maya too, who treated them with cautious curiosity rather than fear. She shared her stuffed bunny with Nico. They colored drawings together on cardboard with broken crayons. Later that night, Lena approached Caleb while he was fixing a cracked water pipe in the back. "We want to show you something," she said. They led him down again, this time through a hallway Caleb hadn't noticed before. At the end was a reinforced door labeled PROJC2SEOVL3CERNCONLY. "It's locked," Caleb said. "Was," Lena replied. Sammy stepped forward with a makeshift gadget made of wires, batteries, and parts of an old tablet. He plugged it into the keypad. After a few clicks and sparks, the door hissed open. Inside, the chamber was colder, more modern than the rest of the underground structure. Metallic walls, white fluorescent lighting, and a glass display case stood in the center, though its contents were hidden beneath a steel panel. "This is where they kept it," Ellie said. "Knew what?" Lena's voice dropped. "The engine. The thing they built us around." Caleb frowned. "What engine?" "A prototype quantum power source. AI integrated. Meant to revolutionize global defense infrastructure. Dr. Harrow said it could run an entire city off a particle the size of a pinhead, but it was unstable. Dangerous. People wanted it destroyed." "And why are you telling me this now?" "Because it's still here. And it's waking up." Ellie pointed at a panel on the wall. A blinking red light flashed slowly, once every 5 seconds. "That light wasn't blinking last week," she said. Caleb looked at them all. "What do you think this means?" "We think someone else knows," Rico said. "And they're coming." That evening, Caleb couldn't sleep. He sat in the back room with his shotgun laid across his lap, watching the shadows. For years he'd only thought about survival. Getting Maya through another day, fixing what he could, keeping her safe. But now the responsibility he bore felt so much heavier. The kids had been used, trained, and molded. Their talents, gifts, and trauma were the residue of an experiment designed to serve something far bigger than them. And now they were in danger again. In the silence, Lena came and sat beside him. "You could leave," she said. "Take your daughter. Forget this place." He didn't respond for a while. "Yeah," he finally whispered. "I could. Why stay?" He turned to her, his expression wary but resolute. "Because you're kids, and you were abandoned. Again and again. I'm not going to be another grown-up who does that." Lena nodded, looking down at her hands. "Most people call us broken." "You're not broken. You're survivors." She smiled faintly, as if hearing that for the first time. "Then maybe it's time we stop hiding." The next day, Caleb began preparing. He rigged the gas station's windows with improvised alarms made from bottle caps and fishing line. He reinforced the trapdoor. He even managed to get a dusty old generator working again. Then he made a call to Clyde, the man who gave him the job. "Clyde," Caleb said, voice steady. "Did you know what this place used to be?" There was a long pause on the other end. "I suspected," Clyde said quietly. "Why do you think I hired a man like you?" "What do you mean?" "Because you've got grit. And I knew one day, someone would come looking for that engine. When they do, you'll need to protect it. And the kids, who are you really?" "I'm just an old soldier who kept his promises." Then he hung up. That night, 2 black SUVs pulled up down the road, their headlights off. Caleb saw them from the roof. He didn't wake the children, not yet, but he chambered a round into his shotgun and kept his eyes on the desert. They were coming. But this time, he was ready. The night air pressed in thick over the desert like a woolen blanket, muffling every sound but the slow, careful approach of 2 black SUVs parked just beyond the cracked highway. The engines had been cut, and the silence was so complete that Caleb could hear the distant chirp of a cicada between heartbeats. From his perch on the station's roof, shotgun resting across his lap, he watched shadowy figures step out, 6 of them. Suits, earpieces, deliberate movement. These were not curious locals or misguided teens. They were professionals, and they weren't here to talk. Inside the station, the children slept soundly, unaware of what lurked beyond their sanctuary. But Caleb was wide awake, eyes narrowed, shoulders tense. Every second that ticked by tightened the noose. He had never been a soldier. He'd been a mechanic, a father, and a man who'd buried his wife with trembling hands. But tonight, with 6 children depending on him, children who had already seen the worst of humanity, he felt more like a soldier than any uniformed man ever had. The front door creaked slightly under pressure. One of the agents tested the knob. Locked. Another moved toward the side, flashlight beam scanning. Caleb knew they'd breach soon. He dropped quietly from the roof, boots landing silently on the sand, and circled to the back. He entered through the supply door, heart pounding. Inside, Lena was already awake. She stood in the hallway near the mop closet trapdoor, fully dressed as if waiting. "I heard tires," she said calmly. Caleb nodded. "How long have you been up?" "Since the light started blinking again." Caleb blinked. "The one in the vault?" "Yeah. It's pulsing faster now." A flash of movement out the window interrupted them. Caleb cursed under his breath and motioned toward the trapdoor. "Jet everyone underground. Now." Lena nodded and disappeared. Within minutes, the others were awake and descending into the bunker. Caleb made sure Maya was among them, holding Nico's hand as they vanished into the depths. Ellie stopped just short of going down and turned to Caleb. "You'll come with us." "I'll be right behind," he said, forcing a smile. She hesitated, then darted after the others. With the trapdoor sealed behind them, Caleb took a deep breath and faced the door, just as it shattered open. 3 men entered first, moving like ghosts, weapons drawn. They scanned the interior quickly. Caleb stepped out from behind the counter, arms raised. "Easy," he said. "This place is condemned. You boys a little lost." One of them approached, gun pointed directly at Caleb's chest. "We're not here for you." "Where are the kids?" Caleb's jaw tensed. "What kids?" The second agent signaled toward the mop closet. "There's a reading. Strong EMF spike beneath the floor." Caleb's eyes didn't flinch. "This is a gas station. EMF's probably from a busted freezer. Cut the crap." The third agent pushed past and started toward the closet. Caleb stepped in his path. "Whatever you think is down there." The butt of a rifle cracked across his temple before he could finish. He crumpled to the ground, stars dancing in his vision. The world spun as darkness swam around the edges. He heard voices above him, distorted and muffled, as the agents pried open the trapdoor. Then silence. Down in the depths of the bunker, Lena led the children quickly through the corridors to the engine chamber. Ellie typed furiously on a salvaged tablet, trying to access old logs. The blinking light on the central console now pulsed red every 2 seconds. "It's ramping up," she said, sweat collecting at her temple. Sammy sat near the panel, twisting wires together. "This isn't just a warning light. Something's reactivating." Rico stood at the map table, overlaying a faded floor plan with new notes. "There's a secondary chamber beneath us." Lena turned to him. "Another level," he nodded. "Sailed off. It was too radioactive, but the logs say it housed the AI core." "The 400 million secret," Sammy murmured. "The one that got everyone killed," Lena corrected. Tommy stood at the far end of the chamber, staring at a sealed door with strange symbols etched into the metal. "We shouldn't wake it up," he whispered. Ellie looked at him. It might already be awake. Above ground, the agents descended into the bunker with calculated steps. The lead one, a man with a thick scar across his left cheek, held a device scanning for heat signatures. 300 feet. East quadrant, he muttered. They moved quickly through the hallways, past shattered labs and flickering lights, deeper into the forgotten complex. But what they didn't realize was that they were being watched. The security cameras, once deactivated, had come online the moment they entered the perimeter. And someone, somewhere within the digital shell of the AI core, was watching. Caleb came to with a splitting headache and a line of dried blood down the side of his face. The station above was empty. His shotgun was gone. The SUV still parked outside. He pushed himself to his feet, staggered for a second, then stumbled to the trapdoor. He dropped down, one hand on the ladder, the other gripping a pipe for balance. The corridor below echoed with metallic footfalls. He crept through the shadows, staying low, letting instinct guide him. Back in the engine chamber, the children worked fast. Ellie had activated a touchscreen on the wall, bringing up a schematic of the engine's outer core. Power flows rising. If we don't stabilize it, the reactor could rupture. We have no idea how to stop it, Lena said. That's not true, Sammy said, pointing to a corner. There's an old override terminal there. We just need a power feed. I can do that, Lena said. She raced down a side hall, ducked through a service hatch, and began pulling old wires from the wall. Just as she did, 2 agents burst into the chamber. Hands up, one shouted. The children froze. Rico shoved the maps under a table. Ellie stood protectively in front of Nico. Sammy closed his fist around the wires he was holding. I said hands up. The agent repeated. Then, from the shadows, a hand reached out and slammed a metal bar into the man's head. He dropped like a stone. The second agent spun around and fired. But Caleb tackled him into a wall. A scuffle followed. Grunts, shouts, fists, elbows. The gun clattered across the floor. Caleb's head throbbed with every move, but adrenaline pushed him through. Finally, he landed a punch that dropped the agent flat. He turned to the kids. Everyone okay? Lena emerged, covered in dust, holding a thick cable. For now. The lights above suddenly shifted, from red to green. A voice filled the room, soft and female, synthetic but warm. Power stabilized. Quantum core awakening. AI matrix interface initialized. Everyone turned toward the sealed platform in the center of the room. It rose with a soft hiss, revealing a metallic orb about the size of a basketball, humming with energy and hovering slightly above its pedestal. The children stared. That's it. Ellie breathed. That's the engine. The AI voice spoke again. Welcome back, Protocol Echo. Recognizing signatures, Harrow Unit Alpha. Secondary inputs detected. Unknown personnel. Threat level undetermined. Caleb frowned. Protocol Echo. Rico looked at him. That's what they called us. A fallback plan. In case the primary project failed, we were the backup. The orb pulsed once. Defense system preparing. Threats detected on upper level. Initiating lockdown. Suddenly, steel doors slammed shut throughout the bunker. One of the captured agents groaned. You have no idea what you're messing with. Caleb turned to him. Then maybe you should explain before it decides you're the threat. Outside, the SUV's radios began crackling with strange interference. Inside them, laptops blinked and died. The remaining agents scrambled, trying to re-establish contact with their men. Then the ground beneath them began to vibrate. The bunker was waking up. Back underground, the orb now projected a holographic image, schematics, data logs, and surveillance footage from the past. They saw images of Dr. Harrow working with the children, training sessions, experiments, even birthday celebrations. The truth unfolded in front of them. Dr. Harrow had created the Echo children as adaptive minds, meant to pair with the AI, to shape it, teach it humanity. But when the project was deemed too risky, the facility was to be shut down. Harrow disobeyed, hiding the children, disabling transmissions, and ultimately disappearing. Ellie whispered. He was trying to protect us. The AI continued. Mission parameters restored. Awaiting interface with authorized Echo unit. Caleb looked around. What does it want? To bond with one of us, Rico said. To finish what it started, Lena added. Then, the orb floated directly to Nico. The quietest, the youngest. Everyone held their breath. The orb hovered in front of him, humming softly. Nico reached out, and as his fingers touched the metal surface, a bright blue light filled the room. The AI spoke with new clarity. Interface complete. Protocol Echo fully online. Threat neutralization activated. The orb zipped upward into a ceiling port, and suddenly alarms blared. On the upper level, metal turrets rose from hidden compartments. Drones activated. The agents outside scrambled in panic as a synthesized voice boomed. You have trespassed on sovereign Echo territory. Leave immediately or be detained. Caleb stared at the children. You control it now. Lena nodded slowly. I think Nico just became the most powerful kid on Earth. The agents fled. Within hours, black SUVs were gone, and helicopters circled from afar but dared not approach. Word spread. Leaks hit the internet. Footage of the orb, the children, and Caleb defending the station went viral. The media called it a hoax at first, then a miracle, then a national security concern. Reporters camped for miles. Officials arrived demanding explanations, but no one could penetrate the station's perimeter without the AI disabling them immediately. Eventually, a name emerged: Dr. Alan Harrow. And a question loomed. What else did he hide beneath the Nevada sands? For a place that had once swallowed secrets in sand and silence, it now vibrated with the voices of the world. Media vans lined the nearby highways, setting up tripods, cameras, and microphones. Black SUVs came and went like clockwork. Drones hovered in the skies day and night. The U.S. military had erected a provisional perimeter 5 miles out, calling it a containment zone. But no one could get close enough without triggering the defense systems built into the gas station's dormant core. At the center of it all, the broken shell of Hunter's pump and Go stood like a crowned king, still cracked, still rusted, still scarred, but now glowing faintly from within. The world watched, but none knew exactly what they were witnessing. Inside, Caleb Turner stood at the window, watching the horizon. It had been 5 days since the Echo Project reawakened. 5 days since Nico, mute, small, and forgotten, touched the 400 million orb and brought a lost intelligence back to life. 5 days since Caleb had gone from a desperate single dad scraping together food for his daughter to the reluctant guardian of 6 extraordinary children and a machine that could rewrite global defense systems. He sipped his coffee, burnt and bitter, and felt the weight of exhaustion behind his eyes. Maya was still asleep, curled against Lena on an old mattress in the back office. The children had stopped being merely children. They were now headlines, conspiracies, threats. And still, not one person from the government had gotten past the station's threshold. The AI, which had begun calling itself Echo Core, was too advanced, too cautious, and above all, too loyal to the 6 it was bonded to. It had determined that until a representative appeared who posed 0 probability of exploitation, it would not entertain negotiations. Caleb didn't understand the algorithms. He didn't need to. He understood one thing: Echo trusted the kids, and the kids trusted Caleb. But time was running out. He knew what pressure looked like. He could see it in the distant movements of black, suited men, hear it in the coded radio chatter that occasionally breached the AI's frequency firewall. Something big was coming. Either a final negotiation or a final push. That morning, Rico handed Caleb a piece of paper with a hand-drawn map and an idea. "There's a second exit route," Rico explained. "Underground. A supply tunnel that leads out into a canyon a few miles from here. I don't think the military knows it exists." Caleb studied the map. "You think they're planning to raid us?" Sammy, seated nearby and soldering a component into what looked like a makeshift drone, answered without looking up. "They don't know how to deal with what we are. When governments don't understand something, they usually destroy it." "They won't destroy you," Caleb said firmly. Tommy, still the quietest of the older kids, added, "They might not destroy us, but they'll try to own us." That was the crux of it. Power didn't like unregulated intelligence, especially not one bonded to 6 experiments, who had vanished from record years ago, and especially not when those experiments had resurrected a defense prototype worth more than several countries' annual budgets. Suddenly, the lights in the station dimmed, then flared red. Echo's voice crackled across the internal speaker system. "Defensive lockdown initiated. Unauthorized aerial incursion detected. Interference signals escalating." Everyone froze. Then came the sound, a low, growing hum, like an engine charging in the clouds. Caleb rushed outside and looked up. Black helicopters. 6 ending. Behind them, military-grade drones, sleek and silent. Caleb stepped back inside. "They're not coming to talk." Lena grabbed Maya, who had just woken up. "Get to the bunker." Ellie ran to the console. "Echo, activate internal defense grid level 3. Divert power to the vault chamber." Acknowledged. Tactical defense priority set. Steel walls hissed and slid into place. Doors locked. Floor grates sealed. The children scattered like they had rehearsed it. In truth, they had. For days now, they'd been preparing for this moment. Each had a role. Sammy activated drone interceptors they'd built out of salvaged parts and Echo's guidance. Ellie ran diagnostics and tracked incoming positions. Lena and Tommy prepared fail-safes on the engine core in case someone tried to forcibly extract it. Caleb, though untrained in combat, was the glue. He stood by the station entrance, holding nothing more than a crowbar, and the kind of resolve that came only from loving something enough to die for it. The first explosion rocked the ground, non-lethal, a sonic pulse meant to disable. The station's shields absorbed it, but barely. Then came the second wave. Drones swarmed low, probing, scanning. Echo Core responded with a burst of electromagnetic energy that grounded 3 of them instantly. The third helicopter circled behind the canyon, unaware of the children's escape route, and deployed a team of soldiers via rope. They didn't make it far. Rico had rigged the tunnel entrance with a trap that collapsed the front, buying time. No one would come that way without a fight. Inside, Maya clutched Nico's hand. The little boy turned to her, then toward the orb hovering silently in the vault chamber. His eyes glowed faintly. A new development. And when he reached out again, the orb pulsed blue. Then, for the first time, Nico spoke. His voice was soft, higher-pitched, but full of clarity. "We have to show them." Maya blinked. "Show who?" "Everyone." And with that, the orb expanded, projecting not just to the room, but to the sky. A dome of blue light appeared above the gas station, and within it, holograms shimmered, recordings from inside the bunker, from the past. Harrow's experiments. The children growing. The shutdown. The betrayal. The escape. And them. Feeding them. Sheltering them. Protecting them. The world watched in awe as the truth unfolded in the clouds. All live streamed. Echo Core had linked itself to the satellites the government had pointed at the station. It was no longer a secret war. It was now a global revelation. Half a world away, news anchors scrambled to translate the feed. Governments denied involvement. Investigative journalists confirmed the existence of Project Echo and declassified files from a forgotten Senate subcommittee. Public sympathy exploded. A groundswell began. Protect the children. Not weapons. Wards. Echo belongs to us all. The military had no choice. They halted. A single, unarmed envoy was sent to the station under white flag protocol. A woman named Marisol Gaines, former intelligence, now head of the Congressional AI Ethics Commission. She stood at the edge of the barrier, hands up. "I'm not here to threaten," she said into the cameras. "I'm here to listen." Caleb met her halfway across the sand. They shook hands. Inside, the children gathered. For the first time, someone in power had come without a demand. Marisol knelt to eye level with Nico. "You scared a lot of people, young man." Nico nodded. "Because people don't understand what they're afraid of." She smiled softly. "And what do you want?" "Nico, to be left alone. And Echo, to help. But only if people stop using us like things." Marisol turned to the others. "You're not weapons, you're children, but very special ones. The world needs to understand that." She stood and faced Caleb. "What do you want, Mr. Turner?" Caleb exhaled, eyes misting. "Custody. Permanently. Of all 6, and protection from any further experimentation. I want the bunker turned into a sanctuary, not a lab, and I want the world to see that these kids didn't ask to be created. But they deserve a chance to live." Marisol nodded. "You'll get it, I promise." For the first time in days, the weight on Caleb's shoulders lifted. Weeks passed. The story dominated global media. Caleb and the kids were hailed as heroes. Scholars debated the implications of Echo's resurrection. Governments postured, but backed down under public scrutiny. Hunter's Pump and Go was officially renamed Echo Haven, a historic site and a protected neutral zone monitored by a multinational ethics council. The children stayed, by choice, with Caleb and Maya. The gas station was transformed, not into a military installation, but into a home, a school, a lab where curiosity was celebrated, not exploited. Echo Core now functioned as both a guardian and a tutor, guiding the children in safe exploration of their abilities. It learned, adapted, and grew not as a weapon, but as a companion. Dr. Harrow was never found, though new files suggested he may have faked his death to protect his creations. Whether alive or not, the children forgave him. His legacy was now theirs to shape. And as for Caleb, people who had once mocked him now spoke of him with reverence. He wasn't a genius, a soldier, or a billionaire. He was just a man who chose to feed a group of scared kids hiding in a junkyard station. A man who listened when others ignored, who protected when others pursued, who gave hope when even the desert offered none. And that made him the most important guardian Echo had ever known. One night, under the starry Nevada sky, Caleb sat with Meyer and the 6 kids on the roof of the now refurbished station. They passed around Cocoa, laughed about old junk they'd found buried in the sand, and listened to music projected by Echo through the speakers. "Do you miss anything?" Lena asked Caleb. He thought about it, then shook his head. "Everything I need is right here." And Nico pointed at the stars. "Do you think we'll ever go up there?" Caleb smiled. "With your minds and Echo's help. You'll probably be the ones to build the ship." They all laughed. The desert wind shifted gently, and the neon sign of Echo Haven glowed softly, no longer a place of mystery or danger, but of belonging. Because sometimes the most broken places aren't broken at all. They're waiting to become whole.